Good afternoon. How's everyone doing?
Yeah.
Great. It is so great to see so many friends and also new faces as well. Before I get started, can we get another round of applause for the Growth Summit hosts today? Thank you all so much for creating this special space and opportunity. And so we're here, Growth Summit 2023, the conference for doers, dreamers, innovators, and entrepreneurs. A chance for connection and networking. I'm sure a question that many of you have been asked is, what do you do? But I'd argue the more important question is, why do you do it? If you had asked me 9 years ago why I did what I did, I probably would have given you an answer. But I'm not sure that I really felt it, that I really understood. You know, the universe had been leaving little breadcrumbs, I think pointing me towards a direction, but that calling, it just hadn't quite spoken to me yet. And that's the thing about callings, is you'll never know when they're gonna speak up, but you gotta be ready. Now don't get me wrong, I was doing work that I loved and I was very thankful for. At the time, I was working to finish my doctorate in clinical community psychology at the University of South Carolina, where my Gamecocks at. Okay, that's good. Hopefully, I'm not gonna ask about Clemson in that moment. No, finishing my doctorate, and I was doing some really neat work. For instance, I had the opportunity to work on a project called 1 Million Healthier Lives, and we got to work with health coalitions all across the country, supporting them in their work. I also had the opportunity to work with the Centers for Disease Control, helping to translate policy into real-world application. I knew generally the things that I was interested in. For instance, I knew that I believed in the power of people to drive change from the bottom up. I knew that I cared about things like sense of community, connectedness, trust, collective efficacy. And I knew that I cared about bridging the gap between research and practice, how we take all this knowledge, what we know works, and make it applicable in the real world. So I knew those things, but I wasn't quite sure how the puzzle pieces fit together. But something I did know was that I loved Greg. You know, the more I speak and tell my story, I wish I could have some polished reason of how I met Greg. Like, I don't know, what's more polished, maybe a library or a museum. But we didn't, we met at a bar. So for my Columbia friends, Chubby's 2x4, a staple, a classy establishment. It was after my junior year in college, and I was very focused on getting into graduate school. So didn't want to date anyone, no boys for me. And that's when the first bar we walked into, there he was. I don't know if I believe in love at first sight, but if such a thing exists, that was it. He had this magnetism to him, this way about him, and it drew me in. But no boys for me, left that evening without exchanging our contact information, and then I ran into him the next day, Publix on Rosewood. And that was it. We were married in 2011. We had been engaged for a year and a half, and wedding planning was not for me, so I went online, found a Groupon to a bed and breakfast in Savannah, and we were married 2 weeks later. And then on March 31st of 2015, we welcomed our first son, Sal. Now, life was pretty humble and simple at the time. I was a grad student, married to a police officer with a little baby, but gosh, I had everything. I remember that September of 2015, driving back from a work trip, and I just started to get teary-eyed, thinking about how blessed I was. That was Sal and Greg in my life. I had it all. And then in an instant, it was gone. September 30th of 2015, a beautiful Wednesday morning, when Greg gave his life bravely serving our community. I'll never forget the moment that they told me he was gone. when that knock on the door came. It was an indescribable experience. I remember feeling as if I was outside of my body, looking down, just watching myself break into a million little pieces. In that moment, felt like I had lost everything. My best friend, the love of my life, the father of my child, my stability, my future. And amidst all the grief you might expect someone would feel when losing someone they love so dearly, my grief was compounded by something else. See, it was 2015. And if you think back, that was really the start of the modern unrest we've seen these last few years, really the beginning of our modern social justice movement. And at the time, I felt like everywhere I turned was a reminder of these rising tensions. And the message I received was that I had a choice. I could either be for police or for community, that I had to pick. It was either or. And that didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me when Greg was alive, and it certainly didn't make sense to me after he was killed. And I saw the healing power of community at work. And so I felt very deeply called. I wanted to be a part of creating healing and change in the relationships between police and the communities they serve. I just wasn't sure how. That led me on a journey of deep listening and learning, talking to people with very different perspectives of my own, leaning into some very courageous and at times challenging conversations. I wanted to understand what was at the heart of the distrust and the disconnect. And how do we create about healing and change? Alongside this journey, I was dealing with the case involving Greg's death. And I'll tell you, being asked what I would want for the life of the man who took Greg from us was the most hateful experience I could ever imagine. So I asked this question a lot, and I'm wondering what this crew is like. Any Harry Potter fans in the audience? Okay, a few. All right, here's a side tip that I have for you. One of the most important tests, we have all the different personality tests. Knowing your Harry Potter house is perhaps the most important one. I'm a Hufflepuff. I encourage you to do the same. But anyway, getting back to Harry Potter and why I brought it up, the person who killed Greg was like Lord Voldemort for me. He who must not be named. I couldn't think about him. I couldn't say his name without feeling hate in my heart. And it felt like I was just struggling to stay afloat. And every time I had to meet regarding the case, it was like I was being sucked into this pit of hate. And I really struggled. I struggled asking myself, how am I going to go in this courtroom and face this person who I can't even say his name, can't even think about him without feeling so much pain and hate in my heart? How am I going to go see him and go be the mother that I want to be for my son? How am I going to teach him about empathy and compassion and forgiveness when I was struggling so hard to find that myself? So I had this process of listening and learning, and alongside I tried to understand, I'm a researcher by training, so I tried to research what is justice? What does it mean? What is the normal path of justice across various paths? But none of it brought my heart peace. You know what did? Imagining how I would feel if I were the mother of the man who killed Greg. And in that instance, I pictured him just like my little boy, so filled with hope and possibilities. And I realized then that I had spent so much time not knowing anything about him that I didn't know his story, but I knew that there were too many things in our world that could have led him down that path. a question I asked, and I asked this at the sentencing: what if we had found him before that tragic day? Would we have found a man in need? And what if we could have helped him? It was then that I realized that at the end of the day, what we police and citizens want is more the same than it is different. That we want our communities to be safe, the people we love to be protected, and our children to thrive. Do you all agree? Is that what we all want at the end of the day? But in order to make that happen, to build safe, thriving communities, we have to work together. And collaboration is hard, period. You all know that in the work that you do. Collaboration is tough. And it is especially hard when you layer on it the lack of trust and disconnection that has happened for so long, especially between police and communities. And that was there when I saw an opportunity to bring that expertise, those little breadcrumbs that have been left for me along the way, and bring them into this space. And it created Serve and Connect, the nonprofit that I run that has the mission of fostering positive change through sustainable police and community partnerships. We envision a future where police and citizens are working together as one community to address root causes of crime so that everyone can thrive. At the very core of what we do is we're trying to show that it's not us versus them, that when we work together, we create a better future for us all. Because we know, as much as I'd love to, we cannot be in every community. And so rather what we seek to do is support this work in action, because for many people, seeing is believing. So we want to be able to show what happens when police and communities come together, that healing is possible, and when they do, great things happen. And our goal is to then shift a paradigm, to create a new narrative of hope that inspires more communities across our country to follow the same model. And I'm so proud. This wasn't work that I had planned on. Like I said 9 years ago, this didn't even exist in my mind. I was looking back, so I'm really excited. We were so thankful. We were proud SoCo residents for many years and just moved out because we had a tremendous opportunity to get our first property. It's right up the road from where Greg grew up. He's a Richland Northeast graduate, right up the road from where he served. A former church, 3 buildings, almost 12,000 square feet, 4.2 acres. Not only will be our headquarters, but more importantly, a space for communities to come together. So we're just moving in, and I pulled out this frame, and it was one of the first stories published on the work. And it celebrated when we raised $733. I look back on our 990 that first year, we raised $3,081. I remember saying, what do we need money for? I'll do this for free. You know, so naive. Last year, we raised $839,000. And I'm putting it out into the universe this year. We are gonna break that million this year. I'm proud, as was shared earlier, our work has reached national audiences. ABC, NBC Today Show, Fox News, Time Magazine. We've reached and worked with hundreds of organizations where Serve and Connect, so police, are one of our primary audiences. And I'm proud to say we've worked with over 75 agencies. We have a partner in 70% of South Carolina counties, and we work with 3 statewide agencies. You know, I share these examples as indicators of what we often say. You know, this is an entrepreneurship, a growth summit. But really, to me, the success is in each individual life that has been touched. Lives like Sergeant Kenyatta Jenkins with the Orangeburg Department of Public Safety. Kenyatta is like a mountain of a man. This dude, I should have asked him before giving his speech. He's 6'7", maybe 6'8", big guy. And he is an absolute teddy bear. One of the kindest, most humble people you will ever meet. Very soft-spoken. And he's one of our ambassadors for our program called Greg's Groceries. So Greg's Groceries is where we provide boxes of non-perishable food. They are packed by police, and they go back with police agencies, so when they come across someone in need, they're able to help. We started at Greg's Groceries in 2017. We packed 50 boxes with 2 agencies. Last year, we packed nearly 5,000 boxes with over 50 agencies. So Kenyatta is one of those officers that delivers the boxes. He's done unbelievable things with this program. He's a school resource officer, and so something that he's done is gone to his principal and said, hey, do you know of any families in need? And in one instance, the principal referred him to a young man. So Kenyatta called his mother and learned that she was a single mom with 6 kids at home. They were really struggling. He went, brought the boxes to her home, and then learned of additional needs that she had. Now we have another program called Compassionate Acts Program, which provides resources beyond food. We have the BAT phone. Police agencies can call us 24/7 and request additional support. Our first line of defense is always to see if there's another resource that's available, but if there's not, we stand in that gap. And so through our Compassionate Acts Program, we were able to buy additional supplies for this family, clothing, bedding, other things for their home. And because of that then, this mom said, can you help some other families? She identified 2 more families in need and Kenyatta was able to help. One of those mothers reported that before this, she was scared of police. She felt really uncomfortable, but because of this, she could see that he cared and it changed her perspective and it made a difference in her and her family's life. Another story that I love from Kenyatta with the Compassionate Acts Program, there was a woman with her son. They were experiencing homelessness, living out of a car, and the car wouldn't work, so he came upon the car. It had a flat tire and something with the engine, I think it was the alternator. And he called asking if we could help. Said, sure, no problem. We'll help with the tire, with the car, and look for a hotel room. Well, when Kenyatta went to replace the tire, the person said, oh no, I'm gonna help, and donated the tire for free. Then he went to the mechanic. When the mechanic learned what was being done, he said, I'm not charging for my services. I'm going to do this at cost. And then when Kenyatta went to the hotel and the hotel manager learned, he discounted the rate significantly. So think about that. All those ripple effects of kindness, what one kind deed can do and how it can spread healing and hope. You know, one time I said to Kenyatta, wow, thank you for everything that you do and the difference you make. And he said, no, Kassy, thank you. Through this work, you've shown me what my purpose is. Another story that comes to mind is on the community end of things. And so it's about our Compass program. So Compass is where we work with police and community partners to help them develop locally driven movements that tackle the greatest challenges in a community. It began in Colombia. We had started working with the Columbia Police Department and learned that the 29203 zip code was one of the areas that was most significantly challenged by crime, that much of our crime here in the city is centralized in a very small radius. And so we started talking more to police officers, community members, community organizations, and learned that there was a common ground where everyone was concerned about youth safety, that there were reports of kids sleeping in bathtubs because they were scared of stray bullets. And on the flip side, that there are kids as young as 10 being recruited into gangs. And now this area, for people who live in Columbia, you know that this has once been a place of prosperity, especially for communities of color. But over time, that village has been fractured. And so in 2018, we launched the North Columbia Youth Empowerment Initiative to bring partners together around the shared vision of promoting youth safety and empowerment in North Columbia. You know, at first the meetings were pretty sparsely attended, but over time, momentum grew. And one of the people who started showing up, we'll call her Amy. At first, Amy was pretty reserved. She was a resident in one of the neighborhoods that's hardest hit with crime. But as time went on, she became more and more vocal. She even helped to launch a group called Charlotte's Girls, which was made up of other moms like her who wanted to help women and families in her community. She also helped us to plan events like our first Empowerment for Peace Walk. It came on the heels of a particularly violent holiday season in 2019, and we rallied the partners together asking what did they want to do in response. And they said they wanted to march for peace. So it was a beautiful day in January. You know, one of those unsuspectingly warm January days, you know what I'm talking about? It feels so great, sun shining. And we were marching through the streets, police officers hand in hand with community members, calling for peace. One of my favorite things was the youth that were leading the way. And the next day they were on the front page of the state newspaper. But there were some in the community who didn't like the progress that was being made. And we became concerned that we may be putting individuals at risk. And so we asked the hard question, should we stop? And Amy, with tears in her eyes, passionately said that this work could not stop. That before this work, her and her 3 small children were in one bedroom at night so they could be shielded from any stray bullets. But because of the work, she felt safer for them to sleep in different bedrooms. Think about what that does to get a good night's rest. She said that the first day that she came to one of our meetings was the day that she planned to take her own life. But now, because of the work, she had found meaning and purpose. And she said because of the work, she saw a light in her kids' eyes that she had never seen before. And so she passionately said that this work could not stop. I could keep going. If you can't tell, I'm a little passionate about this work, and I'm so proud. But more than that, I'm grateful. 8 years ago, these stories of healing and hope, this alternative way of looking at change, it didn't exist. At least not for me, not for what I saw. And I think y'all can understand, I'm talking about police and communities, but look at our country overall. The divisiveness that we've seen, this either or, this othering, us versus them. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? And so to see a different message, one that says healing is possible, that we can work together, and when we do, good things happen. That is what I'm most grateful for. That was the message that I so desperately needed, and the one that I want my sons to hear. It brings me so much pride, increasingly, when I hear other people share the same message, these words that I so badly wanted shared, this perspective to be normalized. I'm so proud. I read a study one time, so it's by a sociologist named Damon Centola. He was looking at how do we make social change happen. And he found, in today's day and age, we think that change often happens if you get like the influencer to share your message. And that can work if you're trying to promote a product or raise awareness. Maybe you're trying to sell a new line of clothes. But when we talk about making societal change happen, culture shifts happen, that's not how change is made. Rather, it happens in more the fringes of the networks and the interconnectedness that happens, and importantly in the redundancy of a message being shared over and over and over again. But something I found very empowering was that Damon Centola found that you only need to engage 25% of a population in order for that tipping point to happen. And I see it, and I feel it. That tipping point is happening in this work. And I'm so excited because I'm putting this out into the universe again. This will be the year that we go out of state and we can spread this message beyond South Carolina, but it started here. And I'm so proud of that. So I'm sharing things that I'm proud of. But this road hasn't been easy. In fact, it's been really, really hard. Let me see a show of hands. Who here has ever felt like a failure? Any sleepless nights? Ever question your leadership? Question yourself? Yes, Greg, amen. These are all things that I've felt so many times. This work is hard. And it's lonely. But I want to tell you, never lose faith in who you are or what you believe and why you do what you do. A few main points that I hope you can walk away with. Number one, collaboration is key. Matt started that in his opening remarks for this afternoon session, and I agree it so fully. Nothing that I've accomplished is anything I've accomplished. Every single thing that has been done in partnership with others. We started with a ragtag group of friends at Delaney's. Here I am, professional conference, mentioning another bar. I'm an aficionado. Anyone go to Delaney's? It's where we started many years ago. But every single decision that's been made has been made thanks to the amazing people I have by my side. One of the best pieces of advice I ever received was surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And I'm so proud to say that's the case of where I am today and has been vital to our success. The other thing, you will fail, but you can fail forward and see every failure as an opportunity to grow. A chance to look inward, ask, how could I do this better? What can I learn from this experience? But also to see failures or disappointments as maybe paving a way forward. I'll be honest with you, actually coming into today, I found out about a little bit of a disappointment. There was a big national grant I was waiting on, and we didn't get it. And the feedback was great. They were like, this is a strong application. I'm like, then what happened? But it was competitive, and what that says to me is that we are able to compete on that national level. We're right there. But maybe I need to be focusing on a few other opportunities. Maybe a few more different doors are about to open. And that's what we need to do. We are going to fail, we're going to have challenges, but it's all in the way that we look at those as opportunities to fail forward. Never lose faith in yourself or what you believe. When I started this work, I remember a common message that I would receive when I talked about what I was doing. People would say, oh, that's nice. That must really be helping you in your grief. It's like, there, sweet widow. And I appreciate where that was coming from, but I knew in my heart that that wasn't the case. That this was something deeper, a passion, a calling that I was on, and I never lost sight of that. Don't lose sight of your values and what you believe. This is gonna sound kind of weird, but one of the biggest critiques I've actually heard is people say that I can be too nice and that it can be perceived as weakness. And I'm here today to tell you that kindness is not weakness. You do not get to where we are by being weak. Kindness is strength, and I am very firmly believe that you can be kind and be strong, and the world needs more of that. We need more leaders that are both kind and strong. Humility is not insecurity or a lack of confidence. It's the willingness to grow, to always seek to be better, and to appreciate the giant shoulders that we stand on. So stand firm in what you believe in your values. And finally, never lose sight of why you do what you do. You want to know my why? It's Sal, my little boy who turned 6 months old the day his dad was killed. Sal could grow up with bitterness and hate and fear in his heart, and I've never wanted that for him. I want him to know that bad things can happen, but that does not mean that the world is bad. That people can make bad choices, but doesn't mean people are bad. And I want him to know that love is much stronger than hate or fear. And so here's my challenge to you. I'll look at this time here. I'm wondering if you want to do a little networking engagement, Greg? What do you think? So here's my challenge. If we can spend time for a few minutes, I'd love you to find a friend, maybe it's someone you know or someone new, and spend a little time sharing, what is your why? What keeps you going? And what are those values? What is the thing you never want to lose faith in? Can we do that? Let's take a few minutes here, and then we'll come back around and close out. Thank you so much.